cause girls is players too. Uh, yeah, cause
All
girls is
right, all right, all right. Good morning and welcome to the next episode of Girls Are Players Too. I'm the mom.
And I'm her child. I'm the daughter.
So, how was your weekend? What exciting things did you do this weekend?
I actually chilled, but in my chilling, the NBA playoffs have gotten to the conference finals for the East and the West. So yesterday, the Thunder just walloped or torched or whatever words you want to insert for Game 7. They took care of business against the Nuggets. So the matchups now are on the West, the Thunder versus the Timberwolves, and the East, the Knicks and the Pacers.
And what's crazy is I don't think some of them teams have ever won a championship. So I mean, this is like a new era of the NBA.
Yeah, and what you'll see is um, this right here just shows that the Pacers have never won a championship. The Timberwolves have never won a championship, and the last time the Knicks or this was back when they were the Seattle SuperSonics. You were a little tyke. So no team has won in this current generation. So these matchups are very interesting for the conference finals.
Well, I'm excited. I think is the first game Tuesday, East Coast, because I think
I
the
think
West, or
so.
no, maybe the West Coast is Tuesday and the East Coast is Wednesday. So I gotta reset everything now, because I haven't missed the game, and it's like trying to figure out again where am I?
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. I think my mind is saying I want to see the Knicks Thunder um, because just when the Knicks won, ooh, New York was insane. I mean, you had people sitting on light posts and billboards, and it was just a good sight to see. And it kind of reminded me of when the Bucks won. When the Deer District was cracking. I mean, it was great to see all of Milwaukee down there and uh, just watching it, whether you were in the arena or outside of it. So it's good to see, for the basketball world, just these teams that have not won it or been to the conference finals in 20 plus years. It's good to see.
Well, I am definitely not rooting for the Pacers. And I for sure would like. I mean, the West matchup is interesting because I like both teams. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
for sure.
happy that OKC won, and we'll talk a little bit more about them shortly. But the Timberwolves, I mean, it's an interesting team. But I think one of the matchups that people want to see is in the finals would be the Knicks and the Timberwolves because they swap players this year.
Hmm, hmm.
Julius Randle went to, and Dante DiVincenzo went to the Timberwolves, and then Carl Anthony Towns, who was a forever Timberwolf, went to the Knicks, and both teams are in their respective conference finals. So that could make for very interesting finals.
Absolutely, absolutely. And no team has won in the 2000s. So it would be great. It'd just be great because again, there's another team. So there are no two peats or the same team didn't win, won't win this year. So it's gearing up for a good conference finals and finals.
Well, I think the to watch the collapse of the Denver Nuggets yesterday. I think it was
Mm.
really more of just Nikola Jokic. Just what else could he do?
Yeah.
And his team didn't help him out. And but after the game, his comments that he made, they asked him, is this team currently constructed, built to be a championship team? And he was like, no. We
Mm.
didn't win, so no.
Hmm,
But do
hmm.
you really think that a lot of that is, well, a lot of it is on the team, but could it be also the fact that they fired their coach 3 games before the start of the playoffs? Like, How do you work with that?
Yeah, I know personally I experienced that just changing a coach when I was in college. It can do a lot to the mental because this person, you know, gets into you, also is encouraging you, and then you swap that out before the playoffs. So you've gone a whole season, and now it's like you gotta now. Granted, their coach, interim coach, has been on the bench, but that person is somebody that you've been riding with all year. And so it's like now you turn and look and it's like, well, he's not here. So who is that person that I could fall back on or, trust to give me the right encouragement or assignments or whatever to make sure that I go out there and be successful. So it can definitely play in the mental, and that's when the team has to really corral around each other and get it done because it's not the same faces or the same voice that you're used to hearing.
And I mean, both of their series went 7 games. So, you
Hmm.
give shout out to David Adelman. His dad, Rick Adelman, was a longtime coach in the NBA. But it's like, what was he supposed to do? I mean, the voice in the room that had won a championship just 2 years prior, Mike Malone was doing a great job. They just ran into a series of mishaps in terms of injuries and their bench was not very deep. But he
Hmm.
found a way to win games, and obviously he rode the back of Nikola Jokic, which obviously he's an MVP candidate again this year. But I'm just always interested when players or when teams fire a coach during the season. Like, what do you expect to happen? Taylor Jenkins from the Memphis Grizzlies, they too ran into a series of injuries, and you didn't know what day it was going to be for John Morant,
Right,
if he was going
right.
to be suspended or whatever. But they had a winning record and they fired him, and then that team just self destructed. I think they won what? Oh, I'm sorry, they didn't win any games in the playoffs.
No.
They got swept by OKC. So it's like, how does a team adjust? But it's not just the NBA. Major League Baseball has 3 teams have fired their coaches to start the season. Now, Major League Baseball has 162 games, something like that.
Hmm.
And so,
Hmm.
to fire a coach in the first quarter of the start of the season, it's May, and these coaches have been fired. But it's like some of them probably are warranted because their teams are just not built to last. But is it the coach
No.
or is it the GMs and the owners who are acquiring the players?
Yeah, with baseball, that is a long season. I mean, it goes over a year, since almost a year, in the terms of just the amount of games they play. Because you look at an NBA season, and that's 82 games. Major League is double that. So there are like two, 3 games, 4 games in a week. So it's like you might see the same team 3 times in a week because of just that series. And so with major leagues, it's like there are a lot of things that go into or factor into how you um, adjust or approach a game. Because if it's, let's just say, the Dodgers playing the Cardinals and they see them 4 times a week, what adjustments are you making? Like how do you prepare a team? Because it's like, I've just seen this team yesterday and I got to see them again tomorrow. And so now you definitely have to get into conversations about the GM, or is the coach, you know, up for this? Like, what is their reputation or their background in the sport? Because it is a long season, so a lot of different factors come into play with that. And two, the sport is not as active as like a basketball game. So there's not a lot of time to make up or switch up and do things on the drop of a hat because you're either your pitcher is pitching well, your outfield doesn't have errors or they're making errors. So it's like what adjustments can you make? Because you're just waiting for people to hit a ball. That's in
Well,
my
and
opinion.
that's interesting that you say that, because I think a lot of teams that struggle, the Pirates, Pittsburgh Pirates, Colorado Rockies, and the Baltimore Orioles, those are the three teams who just recently fired their coaches.
Hmm.
And it's been a while since they've been a winning franchise. Now
Yeah,
Baltimore was actually pretty relevant, so that one was a bit surprising. But you wonder, a lot of it happens to be in the bullpen, and in terms of the pitching. If you don't have good pitching and everybody's just rocking your pitcher,
yeah,
so from your reliefs to your closers, it makes a difference. And then again, some of these are guys, they can only pitch a certain number of innings, and
yeah,
so it's like when you have a sport like baseball, and again with the amount of games that they play, like it's just a wonder that because again, you're swinging a bat, and if somebody's bat is not as hot that day, and they're in the same series with the same team, and then the next day their bat is hot, it's like, what is the coach doing? Like,
yeah,
how much influence can the coach actually have on that? Because they're so individualized in terms of, am I swinging well, am I throwing well, what lineups
yeah,
are we playing with tonight, because there's so much repetition in terms of who's playing,
yeah,
especially certain positions. But it's just, and then like the NFL, last year the New York Jets, they fired their coach, who was Robert Saleh. He was, they were on Hard Knocks that season, So it's like, how do you fire the coach when the team is struggling? Yes, but a lot of that truly is like within the players. Like,
yes.
some of the players were complaining about, their quarterback,
Hmm.
and just not being on the same page. And so people will say, well, he lost the room, he didn't have the support of the room. So it's not just NBA, Major League, NFL does it too. And so this dude got fired, became a consultant for the Packers, and then he now is going to be the defensive coordinator for San Francisco, which is on his second stint with San Francisco. I
Yeah,
mean, it's like every 2-3 years, this coach has been somewhere. So it's like, he's good enough, but yet, records matter clearly.
yeah, yeah. And I think the thing for me is when you talk about a coach being fired or late put out the position or what have you, it's just at some point because the players are out there playing. So if you keep like the turnover of coaches keep happening, like what do you expect for these records? Like just how when you trade players and you got to build and give time for a team to build, don't the coaches get a little grace and leeway to build? Like if a new coach comes in, let's just say for the NFL, and they are 3-13 or what have you, yeah, now he's getting fired or he's on the fire and the hot seat because it's like, well, he didn't perform or he didn't put out the product that we needed to. And granted, that team could have had great players and what have you, but it's just like, at what point do the coaches get a chance to build? Like, okay, we may have had a losing season because we have to make adjustments, and we just had the NFL draft, so we're trying to figure out who we should put on the field. But it's just it's just insane to me because there are like 5 times more players than there are coaches on any NFL, MLB, or NBA. So it's just like, where's the grace for them? Now, I understand that some coaches maybe just should not be coaches. However, if they're in their first year, there should be okay, let's see how this goes. And year 2, maybe then we can talk about what things look like if they're not putting out the product that we're expecting to see.
Well, but it's interesting that you say that, because they fired the coach for the New England Patriots. Bill Belichick was there. They won their 6, 7 Super Bowls or whatever. But then they hired a brother, a protege of Bill
Mhm.
Belichick. They hired him, and I think he got fired after 1 year. So now Mike Vrabel is there, and he used to coach the Tennessee Titans. And it's like, okay, so they're recycling people who lost somewhere else, and now you're gonna
Right.
come. Oh, we're super excited about what he can bring to the league, and it's like, okay, but he didn't win here. So it's just interesting, the carousel of how the coaching world works, and a lot of it, because some teams, like in the Denver Nuggets case, they not only fired the coach, they fired the GM. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, so now you literally have to start over, because now you got to get a GM whose
Yep.
job is to draft players,
Again.
and
Mm-hmm.
then of course they work in conjunction with the coaching staff. So you also have to find a coach, unless they're going to hire David Adelman, full time. So it's just interesting to see. But when we talk about the NFL, so their meetings are coming up this week in Minnesota. The owners are
Yep.
getting together,
Yep.
and they have a couple rule changes that are on the table. The first one being the playoff format. Now, the problem with last year, I think it was glaring that was an issue, because
Mm-hmm.
you had the Minnesota Vikings, who had the number two best record in the NFC, but because they didn't win their division, the four divisional teams uh, from each conference make the playoffs, the top four teams.
Right.
So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers came in fourth, even though their record was worse
Was
than
worse.
the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
So the Vikings ended up as a five seed, and just the luck of how things work, they got beat. Poor Sam Darnold. If he had won, he probably would still be in
Yeah.
Minnesota, but he didn't. And so there, the question is it fair? So if you are one of the top seven teams, period, you still have your divisional winners, but then those seven teams should be ranked based on record.
Based on
What
record.
do you think
Yeah.
about that?
I agree. I agree because I know for the NFC North, they were hot last year because the Vikings were 14-4, no, 13-3, something around there, and the Lions were like amazing. So it's just, I think this meeting or adjustment is something to definitely talk about because it's almost like you're punishing these teams for winning. But now it's like, yeah, because the other teams, based on their division, like now you just fall into where you fall, and may the odds be with you that you win. And it's just, I think that the conversation, even if it doesn't change to like the seven teams, get seeded, however, based on record, I think that a conversation around it is something that um, will at least let the players know that we're thinking about it because there were, I mean, quite a few teams had great records last year, and then to like fall into the wild card or fall into the a lower seed because of the divisional winners. I just think that it's something that should be discussed because again, these players, football is, I mean, that's 16 games, 17 games, so it's like it's a lot less, just because of the sport itself. So it's I think it's something that's worth talking about. To at least let the players know, like, yeah, we want to reward you for the season and the year that you've had.
Well, I just think it's one of those situations where I think I don't know that I agree. I think the format currently is probably the best thing because what is the incentive to win your division? So if you win your division and you have one of the worst records of the seven teams, now you are a six seed or a seven seed. So, I mean, I can see both sides. I think it is worth a conversation, but I'm just not sure how you change it because,
Mm-hmm.
or what that can look like, because the incentive to win your division is that you get that higher seed and you get the
Mm-hmm.
home game, because that was the other issue. the Vikings had to play on the road, even though their record was better than they played the Rams. Their record was
Hmm.
better than the Rams, and so it's like, okay, but yet you lose, you know. So
Yeah,
it made for an interesting setup. You know, the Commanders, they were another team that, you know, finished did well, but they didn't win their division, so therefore they had to. I think they were a 6 seed. So I mean,
six seed.
it
Yeah.
really makes it interesting. But one of the other topics that they're going to be discussing is this tush push. And I mean, obviously, we know the Philadelphia Eagles have made this play very popular and very successful. But it's moving along. So now the discussion truly happens, and there actually are a couple more teams that are in favor of the ban. They want to ban this.
Because it works. Because the Eagles just demolished other teams, and they saw a positive result. It's like, find ways to defend it. Like, now, okay, here's the thing. It's like year one, oh, this is a big surprise. We're gonna tush push and tush push and tush push. And so people, yeah, it's like, how do we defend that? Now going into the next year, figure out a way to guard that or defend the tush push. To just ban it, it's like, so y'all mad because we were able to score and had a positive result. So we don't want that. We want to get rid of that because it's unfair. Why can't other teams incorporate the tush push? Like, is it just for the Eagles? Like, I think it's a way to keep evolving the game. Like, you take the tush push out, not to say that that's just the greatest, play or whatever in the game, but it evolves the game. The Eagles found a way, found other teams' weaknesses, like, and you knew, like, the commentators were, oh, there go that tush push. Like, you heard them
Well, that
saying that.
that to me is what's so interesting is, you know, it's happening. So it's just
Yeah,
like, you know, in basketball, if you know the pick is coming, it's like, can you work to get over it? Can you work to get under it? But you should not, you know, it still floors me how players still fouling. Oh, you know it's happening because I mean, that's everything. Every play now is a pick and roll. But with
yeah,
this push push, I just find it really interesting that it's a basket, or excuse me, it's a football play or football move, and I think the whole gist around it is the fact that another offensive player is literally pushing an
pushing.
offensive player, and that is what makes it, I guess, illegal, and or people question the ethics of the move itself. But there's going to be something else. I think teams just figure out leverage because that's their way of how their teams are constructed, how big their lines are, how strong the base is with their quarterbacks. And I mean, because it's not the first time that people have utilized that play.
Right.
They call it a quarterback sneak, right? A lot of
That's what I
times
was
that's
gonna say.
what it
How's that
was.
any different? How is that
Right,
any different?
exactly. And I mean, all quarterbacks have implemented or tried to when you're on the one and you're trying to get in and whatnot. That's what we do. So it's interesting that this is still something that, well, it's not still something. It's coming to the forefront. And the meetings are 22nd through the 24th. I'm
Yeah.
interested to see what the decision is going to be, because it's right before Memorial Day. So it's like, are we going to hear next week that they banned the tush push? Or that some teams are just like, no, let's figure it out. But I just think overall the fact that every year there's some change that has to happen, which is good. I guess that means that they are trying to look at stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like the
Absolutely.
NCAA, they came out with some rule changes that they want to review. And the big one is that they need to implement challenges for men's and women's college basketball, which is like, hello, because again, the refs are good. They're clearly professionals, but when the game is happening in real time, you're going to miss something. You're
Yeah.
going to make
Yeah.
a call that you thought, even with three refs out on the floor, there's going to be situations that are just not what they were. And so for a coach in the at the college level, which there's so much hype now and money and everything, you don't want to have a situation where coaches don't have the opportunity to take a look at a play, because it could truly change the trajectory or change the whole course of that game.
Yeah, I agree. And two, on the flip side, if you're looking at men's basketball, they're trying to emulate the NBA as close as they can, because some of these players, that's where they're going. So it's like, why not prepare them for what that world can look like with a challenge? But why are they still at 20-minute halves? Like,
Okay. Okay.
if we're making changes, what is this, AAU? Like, why are they still playing 20-minute halves and the women's are at 10-minute quarters? Like, let's make the full change if we're emulating or trying to get them set up for the NBA.
Well, and that's funny because it changes everything. A 20-minute half, you get, and then you still have the bonus, the plus one, and then you got the super bonus where you get two shots. But it's just, coaching is different, because when you look up and your team is down by two and you still got 17 minutes to go, it's like,
Right.
okay, how do you make changes to your lineups and your substitutions, the number of timeouts that you have, because many of the games still get TV timeouts.
Hmm.
So it's just, but it's like, if we're coming into the relevance of 2025 or the 2000s, this decade, or this, not that necessarily the decade, this century, you know,
Hmm.
college basketball has changed. Like, what we knew when you played, when I played, is not the same. It's just not.
Yeah.
So it's like, how come we are still utilizing or implementing rules or a process that is antiquated? And I think the 20-minute halves is antiquated. Like, the game has changed. And it makes for a faster game, because that at the end of this quarter, you're going to have another quarter. But
Right.
it seems to go, like, especially when you watch a women's game, it goes by so fast. But it's easier to factor into your TV rights, because yes, games still can go into overtime and stuff like that, and they can run over. But it just makes for a 2 hour, 2.5 hour game, as opposed to some of these games that's spilling into 2.5 to 3 hours because of these halves. So I'm interested to see, like, that. Those were the two that I saw recently. I'm curious to know what other rule changes could be on
Hmm.
the docket for NCAA. They certainly need to talk about this NIL. I read recently Charles Barkley was talking about how, as an alum of Auburn, he's going to go bankrupt trying to help their program pay for what these players feel that they're entitled to.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that the NCAA was not prepared for how out of control this can be. And I know the president just made he announced that Nick Saban is going to be the president of the he's on some sports commission. And it's like, okay, well, Nick Saban, because he basically retired because of all this crazy.
Yes.
I mean, he one of the most decorated coaches in the history of college football, and he was like, I'm out, like, I'm done with this.
Nothing to
So,
do.
so maybe they need a voice in the room of somebody who can really try to dial it back. Someone who had experience in the realms of what it used to be, because it was a lot of shadiness, a lot of
Yeah.
underhanded, a lot of players were getting paid, which created a lot of recruiting violations and programs being sanctioned because people was making money, and so I get all of that, but there has to be some rational way to try to reel this all in. So again, to know that these discussions are happening, but I need to hear more about how this whole NIL thing is going to play out, because right now the way it's set up, as Charles Barkley said, these people, and he how he makes a lot of money. He
Yes.
can
Yes.
afford to give to the program. But when you got, the top programs and their NIL account is $20 million, it's like, how? How can the other teams,
Where's the
and
money
that's the
coming
top
from?
20 programs, how can other teams compete with that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's just too much money. Like it I understand players getting paid and what have you, for your likeness, your name being used, all of that, but like you said, reeling that in, like there has to be some boundaries to that, because everybody's going to be demanding or comparing, like, well, they got 20 million, so where are our dollars? Where is our money? And so it just really now opens like Pandora's box to a lot of problems coming in the NCAA. And so with those conversations, around the challenges being implemented and continuous conversations around NIL, I think it does shape up for the game to continue to grow and evolve. But yeah, when you involve money, just for people in general, everybody wants to sit at that table because they they want they pot. So it's definitely something that's worth continuing to talk about.
Well, we're going to keep this conversation going because, again, meetings are happening. The NBA, we are into the conference finals. So it's about to just get crazy. We're moving into the second quarter of baseball. So, I mean, there's just so much to talk about. I'm excited for our next episode, which is on Thursday, because I know we've kind of kicked around some topics to bring up, but there's so much of what's happening in the sports world. But I think a countdown is coming up, or not a countdown,
Ooh.
a best of. So stay
Ah.
tuned for Thursday so you can hear our. We're gonna actually try something different and do a best of, but we're not sure what the genre is gonna be. Best movies, best music, best era.
Yeah.
Top 10 players, whatever. So stay tuned for Thursday's episode. We appreciate you listening to Girls Are Players Too. They call me the mom.
And I'm her child. I'm the daughter.
So we say goodbye, have a good day, and we will see you on Thursday.
Money, so I spend it on a watch. Hold on. Low T showing.